A 22-year-old Michigan man will spend the rest of his life behind bars for murdering a teenage girl by luring her to his apartment only to cut her down with a machete before attempting to dismember her body using the weapon that he used to kill her. The scumbag's name, Joel Patrick-Dorlice Travis, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole after he pleaded guilty to one count of open murder in relation to the 2021 slaying of 16-year-old Alexia L. Riley. Of course, full condolences to all family and friends of Alexia L. Riley. I'm not going to read through the full article, but I will give you an overview. On the evening of September 22nd, 2021, there was a brawl outside of an apartment complex in Union Township around 70 miles north of Lansing in Michigan. A machete was used to strike a 14-year-old boy within this brawl that occurred at the apartment complex. The police suspected Joel Patrick-Dorlice Travis of being the person responsible for striking the 14-year-old with a machete, so they tracked him, they surveyed him, they got a search warrant to search Joel Patrick-Dorlice Travis's apartment in search of the machete, which was used to strike and harm and injure a 14-year-old boy. When officers entered Travis's apartment, they found much more than just the machete. They found the deceased body of Alexia Riley rife with slashes from the machete. So it turns out that Alexia had been living in the apartment with Travis. She was kicked out a few days prior to the incident, to her murder. After being kicked out, apparently Alexia Riley was quite upset, angry towards Travis, but despite that, she allowed herself to be lured back into the apartment by the murderer, at which point he cut her down, slay her, slashed her multiple times with a machete. The murderer, Joel Patrick-Dorlice Travis, initially denied being involved in Alexia Riley's death, but during the course of the interrogation, he confessed to the brutal slaying. During the trial, again, he pled guilty, and in front of the court, he apologized for the brutal slaying. He said the following: "My actions that day were reprehensible. I did what I did out of fear, out of not realizing the value of another life. If I could take it back, I would. She had dreams that I took away from her. I don't expect forgiveness." The judge didn't value the murderer's attempt to express remorse. The judge thought he was full of BS, especially given that the murderer had not only killed Alexia Riley, but he had also slashed a 14-year-old boy earlier that very same day. So really, those are the details that we have. There are a few more details within the article if you care to read through that, but I've covered pretty much the main points. Again, full condolences for all of the family and friends of the 16-year-old girl, Alexia Riley, killed September 22nd, 2021. I'm sure they're still coming to terms with the loss. I'm glad he's been given life in prison. I personally prefer the death penalty, but I'd happily accept life in prison for scumbags like this, especially when there's no possibility of parole. I am a little surprised by that, given that the murderer did plead guilty, but I guess the sentencing is ultimately up to the judge, and the article is telling us that the judge wasn't convinced that the murderer was in any way remorseful, and with that, the judge seemingly saw no reason to apply any level of leniency, even though the murderer did plead guilty. I'm no legal expert, as I'm sure you're aware, but I would have thought that pleading guilty would almost obligatorily lead to some level of leniency in regards to sentencing, with much the same logic as a plea deal. The avoidance or the shortening of a protracted trial, not having to subject witnesses or family members to be exposed to very intimate natures of the attack and things like this. There's normally some level of reward or such given to the perpetrators of these crimes, but not in this case. So I find that a little odd. It's not that I'm complaining about that. I'm happy with that. If I'm happy the guy has got life in prison with no possibility of parole. So I'm going to wrap things up at this point. If you appreciate the coverage, please do like, comment, subscribe, share the video as you see fit, and take care.